The bride graduated from junior high school with honors. A junior high school graduate. Oh no, I thought to myself. The content of the profile introduction, I regretted not having checked it over. And at that moment, I found Caitlin's weak point, is what my mother-in-law was nearly about to say, and our eyes met. I am Caitlin, now 28 years old. I and my husband David, who is 2 years older than me, are currently in the middle of our wedding. And my mother-in-law was staring at me with a terrible look in her eyes. I could feel her staring at me with my whole body. To begin with, I hate my mother-in-law. David is a plastic surgeon. We met on a job, found that we got along well together, which then led to our marriage. Well, it's your typical kind of how one gets married. But at our first meeting, David's mother started bickering. Does she work for a normal company? If you are going to choose, you should choose a doctor or at least a registered nurse. An assistant nurse would really not be good enough, but a girl working for a company, that has nothing to offer. She must have pulled the wool over your eyes, David. There were the first words she said to me. That's a rude thing to say. I was the one who fell in love and proposed to her, he said with disapproval. Do you really think you can have a marriage life with just a flirtation and a fling? The difference in our educational backgrounds makes us different human beings. I was stunned. The difference in our educational backgrounds makes us different human beings. Apparently, this seems to be my mother-in-law's catchphrase. And a peak point of her catchphrase was, my husband graduated from Harvard. For my mother-in-law, who really is biased, Harvard graduate is equivalent to the king of all beasts, the strongest lion in the human world. Did you know, if you are a Harvard graduate, you can land yourself any job you want. But as you go down the university ranking, there are some jobs you just can't get. In other words, when you look ahead to your future, but you can have the most number of choices by going to Harvard. By the way, how about your father? What? Well, he finished his high school. Oh my gosh! He only finished high school? Just like Cinderella's stepmother, she placed the back of her hand over her mouth and laughed in a high-pitched voice. Only graduating from high school is going to limit one's possibilities even more. At Mr. Talk of my father's educational background, she did not ask about my education, whether this was a good thing or bad thing. Well, my mother-in-law was just unbelievable. But I still loved David very much. She was a problem, but it's not as if we have to live together. As long as we get through this wedding ceremony, we're only likely to meet at the New Year's or during the summer vacation. Or so I assumed. However, I had no idea that a bomb would explode on the day of the wedding. It happened while the bride and the groom's biographies were being introduced. Caitlin, the bride, graduated from junior high school with excellent grades. There was no question that my mother-in-law would let this one pass. Let's enjoy the party. As soon as the meal was served, she came over to us. So I heard. Yep, I'm sure you did. My mother-in-law puffed up her nostril, glared down at me, and said, So, you only finished junior high school. Is that possible nowadays? Her words were of no surprise. But when I went to my husband's house to meet his parents, the difference in education makes us different as human beings, was my mother-in-law's own theory, and after being forced to hear it, all of this was predictable. Sorry? I asked back. What did you say just now? My husband graduated from Harvard and my son is a doctor. You just don't match up to our standards. Just graduating from junior high school is the lowest kind of education. I told you that the difference in education makes us different as human beings. So having someone so low as you join our family, your DNA will have a negative impact on our family's future genetic makeup. My mother-in-law's voice grew louder and louder. Our conversation was being overheard by people sitting near us, and people started to glance over at us. My husband, who was concerned about the situation, started to say, "What? You don't know, Mom? Caitlin is..." But he couldn't finish his words because the host, who sensed that things were getting tense, intervened by saying, "Let's continue with the next part of the program." I acknowledged the host, and with a smile on my face, I urged my mother-in-law to go back to her seat. "You don't have to tell me to go back, you junior high school graduate. After the ceremony, I'm going to talk to you about your divorce. I wouldn't be able to stand seeing the genes of this family destroyed by someone like you." My mother-in-law turned away, tossing a hem of her dress. "Oh, I'm sorry, Caitlin." My husband apologized. "It's all right. You don't have to apologize to me," I replied with a smile. As I looked at my mother-in-law going back to her seat, looking triumphant, I murmured to myself, "I'll make you understand. You just wait and see." I looked down and smiled smugly. The party continued, and it was time for the congratulatory greetings. The host read out the congratulatory greetings in a clear voice. "Congratulations on your marriage." Looking back, when I saw how she superbly performed the task of wiping the table, I could see her keen, brilliant sense of observation. Pearls Holdings, Public Relations Manager. "What?" My mother-in-law stood up from her seat. The host continued. "I am so happy to hear the news of your marriage. For already 6 years, I would like to thank you for your wonderful contribution to our company's commercial. I wish you a great family. Director of the Public Relations Group, Public Relations Department, Mikoski and Davidson." "What?" My mother-in-law looks as though she is about to start running. "We have received many other messages, but I would like to introduce to you just their names." The name of large companies continue to follow. "What?" My mother-in-law looks as though she is about to fall over. After hearing the congratulatory messages, she came over to our table. She had on a look of complete disbelief on her face. And her husband, who is a graduate of Harvard, desperately tried to stop her. My mother-in-law ignored him completely and more or less shrieked at me. "All right, what is going on here? You need to explain this to me." She's talking to me as if I were the villain. "What do you mean, what's going on here?" I was about to retort when my husband interrupted. "So that's why I asked you earlier. Don't you know? Caitlin appears in company commercials that don't use celebrities. She's a famous actress in the field." "What?" My mother-in-law was blinking furiously, as if she couldn't believe his words. She never listened to anybody, so she's probably thinking that she is hearing this all for the first time. Whenever we met her, she could boast about Harvard by herself. She didn't understand anything about us. My husband, after all this time, is talking about such things to his own mother. How comical is this situation? I met Caitlin because she appeared in a cosmetic beauty clinic commercial. I was trying to explain all of this to you, but all that you kept saying were about her parents' academic background and so on. My husband sighed. Yes, exactly. I also breathed out. After taking a breath, what is wrong with my finishing junior high school? I asked. Then my mother-in-law, in a shrieky and unstable voice, yelled, I already told you, if you think about your future, going to Harvard gives you the most number of options. Right, the future. It's as though I hadn't given any thought to my own future then. I need to make her really understand this. I took a deep breath and started. Then you would start looking for a job after university, right? And when you turn 22 and graduate, you finally join the labor market. If you have a job you want to do, and if that's why you want to go to Harvard, I get it. But according to you, wouldn't your goal be to go to Harvard rather than for your future career? I wanted to work as an actress. I started working towards achieving my dreams as soon as I graduated from junior high school when I was 16. I didn't hesitate to make my decision about what I wanted to be in the future and got off to a quick start. I was able to start working and making my contributions to this society at an early stage in life. You are right. The Harvard is consistently among the highest ranking universities in the world. Of course, it must take an incredible amount of hard work to get there. But I, too, worked my butt off. I don't need you criticizing me just because I only graduated from junior high. I'm not confident in my looks. That's why I chose to fight with my acting skills by appearing in commercials and reenactment dramas and be the top actress in the field. So I continued to study acting while holding down a part-time job. I even went to a movie theater on the outskirts of town with just a piece of bread. You have no idea how much effort it took and how much motivation I needed to go through such times of uncertainty. I would like you to stop looking down on me with the prejudice of a junior high school graduate. I thought I would teach her what only a junior high school graduate can do. It is true that middle school graduates are less educated. On the other hand, they have a head start in working for the society. The determination and bravery of a junior high graduate are the source of our pride and our strength. It is wrong to rank people by their educational background. Then I changed the subject. You've been repeatedly saying, my husband is. Then, is there something that you've worked hard for up until now? Oh, well, that's... she mumbled. Well? I snickered. Shouldn't you say, I've done my best to raise my kids, although that was meant as a sarcastic remark. She looked at me as if she had just received a helping hand. That's right. I worked hard to raise my children, she boasted. There was a slight pause. You don't work hard, David intervened. Yes, this remark is based on what I had heard from David. David explained. You always said your father graduated from Harvard. Make sure to work hard. I expect less of you. You always just kicked my butt but did nothing for me. I did manage to become a doctor, but I was always afraid I wouldn't be able to meet up your expectations. So because of that, when you were asked whether you worked hard at raising your children, you weren't able to reply right away. No? When people's hot spots are hit, they try to pass it off with their emotions. Mother-in-law was no exception to this rule, and she screamed, losing all control. Harvard, they are great. They are the smartest. That's why Harvard is so great. She was cornered. She was like broken gramophone, repeating the same thing over and over again. And because she is so loud, it is extremely irritating. If you are going to get broken, it would be better that you be silent. It was her husband, my father-in-law, who stopped the broken record player. You aren't a graduate of Harvard. He grabbed her shoulders and pulled her away from the table. That's enough. Hey! This time, she was shrieking at him. Father-in-law quietly stopped her and spoke gently. You changed after you got married. When I first saw you working so hard at a flower shop, you were so adorable. And although you weren't such a keen cook, you learned how to do so for me. I married you because I saw you and liked how dedicated you were. You changed the day after we got married. Your favorite phrase became, my husband is a Harvard graduate. You said it everyone, including your own son. Do you have something that you could truly say is your own? She opened her eyes wide open and shouted at him with her spit flying. I was chosen by you, a Harvard graduate. That is my greatness, because Harvard chose me. Father-in-law sighed with a desperate look on his face. I am great because Harvard chose me? The name value of Harvard means everything to you, right? It seems as though he had made up his mind. Maybe this is the way a marriage falls apart. In a way, as we send David to start his new life with his wife, you and I should go our separate ways. When this wedding is over, we'll talk about our divorce. It's not about David and Caitlin. It is about our divorce. Mother-in-law's body started to shake, and in that moment, when she was about to shout, my own mother came bursting into the scene. Whoa, you people! She shouted in an incredibly loud voice and stood between my mother-in-law and me. Mom! My mouth opened in surprise. How dare you do such a thing at my daughter's wedding? Just look around you. My mother looked around the hall. Everyone was silently watching us. Because my mother-in-law had become a shrieking, broken record player, it seemed as though no one dared to speak. Well, it's not surprising. At your child's wedding, whose parents would dare to fight so scandalously like this? My mother seemed beside herself. Today is the day when my daughter should be celebrated. Is that not so? And her husband's parents ruined their wedding. What on earth do you think you're doing? With that, father-in-law said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And lowered his head. But even with his apology, my mother's anger could not be abated. It's true that my daughter only graduated from junior high. I told her that if you want to study acting, you can finish high school and get to know how the world works a little more before doing so. But since Caitlin had made up her mind, and since she said she wants to pursue it, I wanted to do all that I could do for her. Because my mother-in-law tried to open her mouth to speak, my mother stopped her by continuing. You said that Harvard is great because they are the smartest. You said that, right? Then I want you to clean your ears out and listen to me real hard. Her voice was a good match for the broken record player's volume. My daughter taught herself French because she said it was absolutely necessary for acting. She's now completely fluent in French. I don't think she deserved to be looked down upon on junior high graduate, especially with her level of French. Fluent in French. People were talking to each other in surprise. It's not the easiest language to learn. Most likely, no one would even suspect that I would be fluent in another language. I did everything I could think of what would improve my acting. And that is how I came to be fluent in French. And my mother made her final remark. I would like you to absolutely put aside your academic prejudice. There was a round of applause. We're going home. I can't stand to see you embarrassing yourself any longer. Father-in-law lowered his head to my mother and pulled the shrieking mother-in-law with him out of the hall. That is how our wedding ended. My friends congratulated me, and I was very happy to have been able to wear a wedding dress. And my father-in-law got divorced from my mother-in-law after having sheltered under the name value of Harvard and being immersed in feeling herself special that way. There was nothing she could do now, all by herself. She went back to her hometown somewhere far away. Even David, her son, bore such heavy grudge against her for raising him under the mantra of Harvard is the best, that he said he would not give his mother a cent to help her with her living expenses. I've continued to work as an actress in television commercials. Sometimes I open my mouth for the dentist, or act a part of a store manager of a fish shop, or lay down on the ground at the scene of a crime. I do all sorts of things. In the midst of all this, I became pregnant. In life, an academic qualification is important, but placing one's value in that one thing is not good. We should constantly work on improving ourselves. Tomorrow, we will be a better version of ourselves. By continuing to work hard, we will be even better than yesterday. I gently touch my stomach that is growing bigger by the day. Tomorrow, for sure, it will become bigger, and a happier day will